Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Violet leaned casually against the office kitchen counter, absent-mindedly stirring her third cup of coffee for the day. Outside, the sun began its slow descent, casting warm, golden hues over the cityscape. The hum of her co-workers' chatter filled the room, their conversations laced with excitement over evening plans. Lisa, her vivacious and ever-persistent friend, sidled up to her with a sly grin. "Come on, Vi. One drink won't hurt. It's practically the weekend," Lisa coaxed, her tone as teasing as her sparkling eyes. For a fleeting moment, Violet hesitated. Her recent conversation with Kevin resurfaced, his patient yet firm plea for her to move past late-night outings and prioritize their relationship. She'd promised him, swearing that her days of bar-hopping and late-night parties were behind her. But those promises felt distant now, like echoes of someone else's resolve. A familiar restlessness stirred inside her, a craving for the energy of the nightlife she used to embrace so freely. Kevin had never understood what those nights meant to her, how they made her feel alive in ways her monotonous routine couldn't. It wasn't about the drinks or even the music, it was the sheer, unfiltered freedom. A small, daring smile tugged at her lips as she set her coffee down. "Okay," she said lightly, her voice tinged with mischief. "Just one drink." Lisa whooped in victory, slinging her bag over her shoulder as they joined their co-workers heading out. Violet's gaze drifted to her phone, imagining Kevin at home. He was probably just settling in, perhaps cooking dinner or unwinding after a long day. The thought of the unspoken tension between them surfaced briefly but was quickly pushed aside. Tonight wasn't about obligations or expectations. Tonight was about her. By the time they arrived at the bar, night had fully descended. The rhythmic pulse of music greeted them as they stepped into the lively space, where laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses. Violet felt the electrifying energy wash over her, soothing the restless ache she'd carried all day. Moving effortlessly through the crowd, she greeted familiar faces, her radiant smile sparking joy wherever she went. Lisa nudged her, grinning. "You've got everyone in here wrapped around your finger, you know. What's your secret?" Violet laughed, shrugging with playful nonchalance. "It's a natural talent," she replied, her eyes dancing with amusement. She loved the attention, the subtle glances, the lingering gazes. It wasn't about acting on them, not usually. It was the thrill of being seen, of being desired. As the night unfolded, she found herself exchanging glances with a tall, self-assured man at the bar. His charm reminded her of the excitement she'd once chased before life settled into its predictable rhythm. For a brief moment, Kevin's worried face flashed in her mind, his voice urging her to grow up, to change. But here, surrounded by laughter and music, that voice felt far away. Time slipped by unnoticed, each hour melting into the next like ice in her glass. Violet reveled in the atmosphere, flitting between conversations and letting her laughter ring out. The earlier guilt over breaking her promise to Kevin evaporated, replaced by the intoxicating joy of living in the moment. One man, Greg, or maybe it was Jeff, stood out. His sharp wit and easy confidence intrigued her. When he asked for her number, she paused briefly, then typed it into his phone. He flashed a triumphant smile, promising to call, and she didn't stop him. When she finally glanced at the time, it was well past midnight. A flicker of irritation crossed her mind as she thought of Kevin, who would undoubtedly have something to say about her choices tonight. To her, his idea of maturity felt more like an excuse for dullness than growth. Shrugging off the thought, Violet downed the last of her drink. The night was still young, or at least it felt that way. Tomorrow could wait. After all, she worked from home, and Fridays were forgiving. It wasn't until nearly 3 a.m. that Violet decided to call it a night. Her mind buzzed pleasantly, and though her steps were steady, she could feel the edges of her limits approaching. When Greg, or Jeff, suggested they go somewhere quieter, just the two of them, she gave him a practiced smile. "Maybe another time," she said, her tone light and noncommittal. The streets were nearly empty as her taxi wound its way through the quiet city. The stillness of the night felt strangely comforting, giving her a moment to gather her thoughts. The inevitable confrontation with Kevin loomed in her mind, but instead of fear, she felt a quiet defiance building within her. She rehearsed her responses, crafting the perfect retorts for his predictable accusations. When the taxi finally pulled onto her suburban street, she was relieved to see the house dark. Kevin wasn't waiting up for her, which meant no immediate arguments. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, the soft click of her heels the only sound in the stillness. The silence struck her as she entered the house. It wasn't just dark, it was empty. Kevin wasn't home. For a moment, Violet stood frozen, absorbing the unexpected emptiness. Then a slow, mischievous smile spread across her face. "Perfect," she murmured, kicking off her shoes and sinking into the couch. Stretching out, she let the solitude wrap around her like a comforting blanket. No lectures, no guilt, no expectations. Just her, the quiet, and the undeniable satisfaction of living life on her own terms. Before we proceed, don't forget to subscribe for updates. There's always more to discover. Violet couldn't ignore the persistent tug of curiosity. Kevin's disappearance wasn't typical, and while the silence in the house was a welcome reprieve, an unsettling thought gnawed at her. Where could he be? With a smirk, she dismissed the concern, assuming he was sulking at a friend's house. Still, the question lingered, refusing to be silenced. Restlessness took hold, and Violet began pacing through the house. She checked the bedroom, the office, even the bathroom, each one empty. The garage confirmed it. His car was gone. Strange. Even during their most heated arguments, Kevin never failed to send a text. A faint unease crept in, but Violet quickly shrugged it off. Her wandering brought her to the kitchen, where her steps faltered. On the table, under the dim glow of the nightlight, 3 objects stood out: a pile of divorce papers, a small box containing Kevin's engagement ring, and a meticulously folded letter. Her heart skipped, then steadied as she let out a sharp laugh. "Wow, Kevin," she said, striding to the table. "Quite the production." She picked up the papers and flipped through them under the soft light. A laugh escaped her again, louder this time, echoing in the stillness. "Blackmail and theatrics? Is this your master plan to win me over?" She dropped the papers back onto the table with a smack, her gaze shifting to the ring. "As if this holds any meaning now," she muttered, before her eyes landed on the letter. With a touch of dramatic flair, she unfolded it, leaning against the counter to read. Yet as her eyes scanned the text, the words struck deeper than she had expected. "Violet, I've spent countless nights trying to mend what's broken between us, but I've come to realize I can't fix it on my own. Your actions have become unbearable, and the promises you made, ones I held on to, now feel like lies. I loved you, Violet. I still do. But love demands respect, trust, and effort, things you've stopped giving me. You disregard my feelings as if they're inconsequential. You speak one way but act another, and it's tearing me apart. I know about the nights out, the bars, the flirting, the moments with other men that betray what we built together. It's the hardest truth I've ever faced. This has to stop. If any part of you values what we've shared, meet me at the Courtyard Suites, room 217, on Maple Grove Road by 6 p.m. this Friday. If you don't show, you won't see me again. I hope we can resolve this without conflict, but I'm prepared to face the consequences of your choices. The divorce papers are there for you to review. This is serious, Violet. The decision is yours. Kevin." The letter trembled in Violet's hand, her chest tightening momentarily before she dismissed the feeling with a burst of bitter laughter. She crumpled the paper and tossed it to the floor. "Go to hell, Kevin," she shouted into the emptiness. "What do you even know?" A mocking grin curled her lips as she sneered, "Jon Snow wannabe." Her defiance masked a deeper unease. Kevin's accusations whirled through her mind, blending with a pang of guilt. "Flirting? He doesn't know about Michael, does he?" she murmured. That brief affair had been meaningless, at least that's what she told herself. She laughed again, sharper this time, as if trying to dismiss the thought. "Well, Kevin, let's hope your sleuthing skills don't improve," she muttered. Still, his ultimatum stung, a stark reminder of how far things had unraveled. Shoving the emotions aside, she poured herself a glass of water, swallowed 2 hangover pills, and trudged toward the bedroom. "He'll come crawling back," she told herself as she collapsed into bed. "This is just another one of his manipulation games. He'll apologize like he always does." But even as her words echoed, they felt hollow. The crumpled letter on the floor was a silent testament to the choices she couldn't escape. When morning came, Violet awoke to a faint headache and the unmistakable sight of the letter and divorce papers still on the kitchen table. The memories of the night before crashed down, but she shook them off and powered up her laptop, pretending to focus on work. She glanced at the documents only once, muttering, "Blackmail. He's desperate for attention." A sly smile formed as she imagined Kevin brooding in a motel room, waiting for her to appear, humbled. Not going to happen, she thought, savoring the idea of him squirming. Kevin always cracked first. He would again. By late afternoon, her concentration had evaporated entirely. Grabbing her phone, she typed a quick message to her friends. "Nightclub. Drinks on me. Need to let loose," she sent, satisfaction blooming as replies poured in. "You bet! Where to? Everything okay?" The responses bolstered her confidence. She rattled off the details, envisioning the music, the drinks, and the sweet escape from Kevin's words and the weight of their crumbling relationship. By evening, Violet was nestled in the plush confines of a VIP booth at a crowded nightclub. A martini in hand, she leaned toward her friends, her voice animated and her laughter flowing freely. "Can you believe him?" she exclaimed. "Divorce papers and some sad letter? Does he really think I'm going to chase after him?" Lisa clinked glasses with her. "Please, you're a queen, Violet. If anyone should be begging, it's him." Another friend chimed in. "Exactly. His loss. Let him sit in that motel room and sulk." Their encouragement fed Violet's boldness. A new idea began to form, daring and defiant. "I'll show him," she thought, swirling the last of her drink. "If Kevin thinks he can just walk away, fine. I'll walk too, but I'll do it bigger and better." Violet strolled through the shadowy nightclub, her eyes scanning the crowd with purpose. She wasn't just looking for anyone. She sought a man who could be her instrument of vengeance, a way to remind herself of her own allure, and to make Kevin regret ever doubting her. But tonight, something felt off. The air that once carried her magnetic charm seemed stale, her radiant smiles went unnoticed, and the glances she expected never came. Instead, the men around her barely acknowledged her presence, their focus drifting elsewhere. Conversations fizzled before they began, leaving Violet alone in the sea of strangers. By 11 p.m., her confidence had crumbled under the weight of her frustration. The drinks she downed for courage only deepened her unease, making the lively club feel oppressive. Defeated, she ordered a ride home, her confidence eroded by the night's disappointments. The stillness of her home struck a harsher chord than the isolation of the club. She slipped off her heels and walked into the living room, only to be greeted by an unsettling emptiness. Kevin wasn't there. No critical glance, no glass of water to ease her hangover. Sinking onto the couch, she clutched her phone, debating whether to call him. A pang of dread tugged at her chest as she dialed, but the line rang endlessly before going to voicemail. "Fine," she muttered, tossing the phone onto the table. "I don't need you, Kevin. I can do this on my own." Yet, as she crawled into bed, the alcohol's fog lifting, a gnawing loneliness enveloped her, heavier than any she had felt before. The next morning, her phone's sharp ring jolted her from restless sleep. Groggy, she answered. "Hello? Mrs. Violet Tronder?" The voice was clipped and professional. "Yes, speaking," she replied, sitting up. "This is Mark Reynolds, Kevin Tronder's attorney. I'm following up to confirm you've reviewed the divorce papers delivered to your address." Her mind scrambled to make sense of the words. "What are you talking about?" "As per Mr. Tronder's instructions, all further communication will go through my office. If you have questions or counteroffers, feel free to contact us. Please understand the seriousness of this matter." Before she could respond, the line clicked dead. Staring at her phone, Violet felt her chest constrict. He's serious. The day unraveled further. Attempting to pay a bill, she discovered their joint account was frozen. Panic mounted as she checked her personal account, only to find it nearly empty. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't impulsive. Kevin had planned this. Sitting at the kitchen table, the full weight of her reality sank in. The bravado she'd clung to shattered as she realized Kevin wasn't bluffing. He had prepared meticulously, leaving her adrift without a safety net. The divorce hit like an unrelenting storm. Each court hearing chipped away at Violet's composure. Kevin's lawyer, Mark Reynolds, was relentless, laying out a detailed financial narrative that left little room for dispute. "Your Honor," Reynolds stated calmly, "my client took prudent measures to secure his assets after enduring years of Mrs. Tronder's reckless behavior." He presented ironclad evidence: asset transfers, closed joint accounts, and property placed solely in Kevin's name months prior to filing. Violet's lawyer objected, but Reynolds countered with unshakable documentation. By the hearing's end, it was clear Violet would leave with far less than she had anticipated. The revelations didn't stop there. Reynolds introduced a damning dossier on Violet's personal life. Photos of her leaving bars with unfamiliar men, flirtatious messages, and records of an affair, complete with hotel receipts. Though her lawyer dismissed the material as invasive, Reynolds argued its relevance. "Your Honor, this evidence illustrates the erosion of trust within the marriage," he asserted. Kevin, appearing via video, spoke with quiet finality. "I built a life for us, but trust was repeatedly broken. I had to protect myself when it became clear she wouldn't change." Outside the courtroom, her world crumbled further. Rumors at work began circulating, fueled by an anonymous report detailing her drinking and infidelity. Information so precise it could only have come from Kevin. Her boss called her in, face lined with discomfort. "You've been a valuable employee, but this situation is disruptive. It's best if you resign." Packing her desk, Violet felt the weight of every whisper from her co-workers. Back in her near-empty home, she stared at the divorce papers that had gone from an inconvenience to a crushing reality. Kevin was gone, and he had taken with him not just his presence, but the foundation of her life. In the months that followed, Violet's attempts to rebuild were clumsy and uninspired. Her once unshakable confidence was in tatters. She reached out to Kevin repeatedly, first in anger, then desperation, and finally with pleas for reconciliation. Each attempt was met with silence. One day, her lawyer forwarded a brief message from Kevin. "I waited for you at the hotel at 6 p.m. I gave you a chance to show sincerity, but you chose the same path. I warned you, but you didn't listen." The words hit harder than she expected. For the first time, Violet understood that Kevin wasn't waiting for her to change. He was truly gone. As she tried to move forward, the reality of her situation loomed large. The life she had known was gone, and she was left with only the ruins of her choices. Alone, she faced a future she could barely recognize, her confidence and stability shattered beyond repair. Her first venture into the world of dating faltered when the man she was involved with revealed he already had a partner. "It's complicated," he had explained, as though those words could dull the sting of his dishonesty. Another potential relationship seemed promising at first, but the facade crumbled when she learned he was married, using her as a distraction from his deteriorating home life. What once filled her with excitement now felt void, each new encounter tainted by the bitter residue of betrayal. The vibrant, magnetic woman who once lit up every room she entered seemed to have faded. Nights spent at bars, once brimming with the thrill of possibility, now felt empty, colored by loneliness. The drinks she once enjoyed for their effervescence now served only to dull the ache of her growing disillusionment. One quiet evening, Violet found herself alone in her dimly lit living room, her phone in hand, scrolling without purpose. Her thumb paused over old photographs, moments frozen in time from a life that felt like someone else's. Among them was an image of her and Kevin. His quiet strength stood in stark contrast to her lively exuberance, a balance she hadn't fully appreciated until now. For the first time, she truly acknowledged what she had once dismissed: his steady patience, his quiet dedication, and the quiet love that had always been there. Tears welled up and spilled over, and she didn't hold them back. She let the emotion course through her, realizing that the life she mourned hadn't been stolen from her. It had disintegrated bit by bit through her own decisions, until there was nothing left to stand on. Violet still saw herself as a queen in her mind's eye, but her throne was frozen, her crown unbearably heavy, and her once thriving kingdom had become an empty, barren wasteland. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.